Welcome to Beadaholique. Today we're going to be using ice resin to fill a collage pendant. I've pulled out the basic ice resin kit that we sell here at Beadaholique. It's the 8-ounce kit. In it you will get part A, which is the resin. You get 4 ounces of that. Part B, which is the hardener. You're going to get 4 ounces of that. Detailed instructions, some stirring sticks, some nozzles, and some measuring cups. And on these measuring cups it actually already has measured increments to help you measure the resin and the hardener out. It's going to be really important here in a moment that we get exact measurements. Otherwise the resin is not going to set up properly. So first off, before we begin, I want to show you something. One, the room that we're working in, although you can't tell this from where you are, is actually quite warm. We always want to work in a warm setting when we're using resin. We don't want to have the air conditioning on or a fan blowing on our resin. And I've also had part A of the resin sitting in a tub of hot tap water for the last 40 minutes. And this is important that the resin is warm to the touch. You don't want to start with cold resin. So I'm just going to pull that out of my water. I'm going to take a towel, I'm going to dry it off. I don't want any water drops to get into my mixing containers. You'll also notice I have just some papers down. You want to make sure that you protect your work surface. I'm going to now take my measuring cup and I'm going to look right here where it says 1 tablespoon because I'm going to measure 2 tablespoons worth. And I'm going to start with my part A resin. You need to be real precise about this in order for the resin to set up properly. Go slowly. It's better to go slow. I think that's one of the main keys when you're doing resin. It's just slow and steady. Don't try to rush it. Don't skip any steps. Okay, there's 1 tablespoon of part A. I put that aside now. Now I'm going to take part B, the hardener. And I'm going to measure out another tablespoon. Now I'm going to take one of my stir sticks and just start mixing it. And I'm going to do this for a full 2 minutes, trying to get all the striations out and get the hardener to mix with the resin. Now if I wanted to add some color, some dye, I would do it right after my 2-minute point. And I'd just mix it gently in. But for this particular project, I'm going to have it be clear. It's been 2 minutes, and now we're going to come back to our resin, and you're going to notice that there's actually quite a few bubbles within the resin. We're going to counter those in a couple different ways. First off is after I've finished my full 2 minutes of stirring, I'm actually just going to let this batch of resin sit for about 3-4 minutes. During that time, some of the bubbles are actually going to rise to the top and pop naturally on their own. And then we're going to take care of the ones that are remaining here in a moment as well. We're now ready to fill our collage pendant with our resin. So we already have the image in there and it's been sealed. And what we're going to do is, first off, we're going to blow on it a little bit, just to get any dust out of there. We don't want any dust because if there is dust, it will actually be embedded into our resin. Couple different ways you can do this. You can go ahead and you can actually pour your resin into the setting itself, or you can take your stick and you can carefully put resin into the setting. I actually prefer this method if you're working with a smaller object or one with a lot of crevices or deep corners. We just keep taking a little bit on our stick, putting it into the setting. And then what we can do is we can push the resin to the corners. By doing it with your stir stick, it helps to reduce the possibility of overflow, which is something we really want to avoid. With ice resin, you have about 30 to 40 minutes to work with the batch of resin that you stirred up. Gives you some time to actually play with it and get it just how you want it. It's a good idea to keep your setting on a flat surface. You don't really want to move it once you've filled it. It's too easy to spill or accidentally get your finger in it. And always work in a well-ventilated room. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to let that rest for about 5 minutes And then I'm going to come back and try to take care of any of those remaining bubbles. It's been about 5 minutes, and we're going to go back and revisit our resin piece. And as you can see, there are little faint bubbles that have risen to the surface of the resin. We're going to want to remove those bubbles, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to take a micro torch. I'm going to turn it on and set it to continuous flame, and I'm going to very quickly just go over the surface. And that is all it takes. And now what I'm going to do is, because occasionally more bubbles will arise, I'm going to check back in about another 5-10 minutes, see if any more bubbles have popped up. If they have, I'm going to go back and do the exact same thing with my torch. Just briefly skim it over the surface so that the heat can pop the bubbles, and then I'm going to let it be. And between that time of when I first remove the bubbles and when I'm going to be checking back, I actually want to take a lid of some sort. Here I actually just have a tray lid, and I am going to put it over my resin piece. Just prop it up so that air can get in there. And I'm just going to let it be like that. And then I'm going to let it be for 24 hours for it to dry and 3 days for it to get to a hard cure. And the reason I've put a lid over it is because I want to prevent any dust from getting into the surface. And then enjoy. Have fun making many wonderful pieces using ice resin.